Pacing a marathon is challenging, but there are ways to make it easier. Now in this video, I'm going to talk you through how I plan to pace my next marathon race. Now for this race, I am targeting a 3 hour and 30-minute finish. So just under 8-minute mile pace or just under 5-minute per kilometer pace. This is my 9th marathon, and races tend to go one of three ways. Either I start fast, I fade, and then I just cling on to the finish and hope for a respectable time. If I'm lucky, I can evenly split and keep my paces roughly the same all the way through the race. Or on a really good day, I can negative split. That means I can start the race slow and then build through the paces and then hopefully finish strong. For this marathon, my 9th marathon, I'm planning to negative split, and I'm going to use my Coros watch to help me do it. I will be using my Coros watch as a virtual pacer. I'm going to set up a run workout that's going to help me build through the paces, starting below that 3:30 marathon finish time, building up to it, and then slightly over it at the end, giving me that negative split and hopefully allow me to pace the race perfectly to break that 3:30 barrier. So let's talk through how I'm going to set up the watch, what the paces are going to be, why I've chosen those paces, and then at the end I'll just talk a little bit about what I think will be the pros and the cons of planning to pace a race in this way. I'm going to break the race up into 4 10-kilometer segments with a final segment of about 2.5 kilometers. And that's just to ensure that I definitely cover the distance on the watch and I don't come up short on race day. So let's go through each of those 10-kilometer segments and talk about what paces I'm aiming to run. Segment 1, the first 10k. I'm going to set my watch up to run at 5 minutes to 5:10 per kilometer. Now if I'm at the lower end of that average pace, that should bring me through the first 10k in about 51 minutes 40. So very much under pace, but what this will allow me to do is start the race nice and easily. It will allow me to hopefully hold back a little bit, not get too excited when that starting gun goes off and burn too many matches. It will also allow me to start my fueling strategy. I plan to take a gel every 4.5 to 5k. By starting slower and not going off too hard, this should allow my body to digest the carbohydrates in that gel a lot more easily than if I'd gone off at a harder pace. Hopefully meaning that I've got more fuel and energy as the race goes on. Moving into section 2. Now I've got to pick things up a little bit. I'm already a little bit behind pace, but that's okay. For the next 10-kilometer segment, I'm going to build the pace to 4:55 to 5:05 per kilometer. So again, if I average the lower end of that pace range, 5:05, that should put me through the next 10k in about 50 minutes and 50 seconds. So hopefully by the end of this second 10k, I'll be feeling still comfortable. I still would have been able to maintain my nutrition strategy and feeling positive about pushing on into the third 10k section. So the third 10k. Now we're into the dark zone. This is notoriously a time for me personally in marathon races that I find really difficult. Between 20 to 35 kilometers is where the grind really happens. And this isn't going to be easy because now we're picking the pace up to 4:50 to 5 minutes per kilometer. So if I'm on the lower end of that average pace, that's a 50-minute 10k. Still not blistering, but let's remember that we've already got a half marathon and so in our legs already. When I come out at the end of that third 10k section with 30k in, we are right into the heart of the race. This is where the race really begins. So now we're into the final 10k section, kilometers 30 to 40. And for this, I'm going to be looking to average between 4:45 and 4:55. So if I'm on the lower end of that spectrum, that's going to be about 49 minutes for that final 10k section. Now, at this stage, I will definitely know what my legs have got in them. It might be that I've been able to hit the top end of that average and I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. If I've hit the lower end, I'll be on a time of roughly 3 hours and 21. So that leaves me about 9 minutes to cover the last 2 and a bit kilometers. That's going to be a stretch. That's averaging about 4:30, maybe 4:25 per kilometer. Don't get me wrong, that will be a tough ask, but I've done it before in races and I've specifically added those things into my training, fast finishes at the end of long runs, for example, to train for that possibility. And who knows, on the day when the mindset is right and the motivation is there, we can always push just that little bit harder, especially when we're coming up to the finish line. So you never know what you're capable of in those last couple of kilometers. So that's the strategy laid out. 4 10K sections and then a little bit on the end where we just hope that we've got the legs to push us over the finish line nice and fast. So let's talk a little bit about what I think are the pros and the cons of this approach. Let's begin with the pros. First of all, this will force me to start the race slow. It will force me to hold back when everyone around you is shooting off the line and allow me to build into the race. It would allow me to take on fuel and it will allow me to get a real good gauge of how I'm feeling on the day. Second pro is I'll have nothing to think about and I won't have to worry about calculating paces and projected finish times or how far ahead I am or how far behind I am on the day. I can just let the watch do all of the work for me, and as long as I just stick within the pace ranges, I should know what I need to do at the very end, as we've just gone through. Thirdly, it'll help me break the race down into smaller chunks. Marathons are tough. You are on the edge for a really, really long time, regardless of whether you're a sub 2 hour 30 marathon runner or a 5 hour marathon runner. It's a long time to be out on your feet. So whatever you can do to psychologically break that race down into smaller chunks, I feel is going to help you on the day. And then my final pro is that psychologically, a negative split race is incredibly motivating. When you're seeing your average pace come down towards the end of the race, you just seem to be able to find that little bit more energy, that little bit more spark, that little bit more fight. So those are the pros. What about the cons? Because there definitely are some. First con, this is not a good approach if on the day I need to run on feel, and that could be for many reasons. Maybe I don't feel great on race morning. Maybe the conditions mean that I want to join the back of a group. For example, if it's particularly blustery or windy, I might want to tack on to a group of runners that are ahead of me to try and conserve energy and run in their slipstream. And if I'm trying to stick to certain pace charts, then that's not conducive to that. So it's not conducive to running on feel or racing a race. My second con is it will be quite demoralizing if I'm struggling. If I know that I'm not doing particularly well and I'm not hitting those paces, my watch is going to be beeping at me the whole time and telling me you're behind, you're behind, you're behind. Now I can always switch off the kind of main workout screen and go on to just my normal Coros pace screen, but you know, I'm still going to know that I'm falling behind. And if that happens early on, psychologically, that's going to be quite tough to come back from. And then finally, I'm leaving very little room for any error or any flexibility. So, you know, if I need to go and use the bathroom mid-race, which I am one of those people that do need to frequently go to the toilet during longer races. In fact, at this very race circuit, the Goodwood Marathon, where I'm doing this race, where I set my PB about 2 years ago, 3 hours 19, I actually did 2 toilet stops during that PB. Calculated they're about 90 seconds each, so that obviously was added into my time as well. And that's just something to consider. I've left very little room for flexibility. Now I could increase the paces and give myself a little bit more scope, but I know where I am at the moment fitness wise, and I think this is probably just about what I think my body is able to do without going too hard and blowing up. So that's the plan, the pros, the cons, and how I hope I can execute it on race day. If you want to find out how I do, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And if you're interested about how you can create workouts and send them to your Coros watch, like I've been talking about, click on the link somewhere around here on the screen, and I'll talk you through how to do that. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in a new video very soon.